We're
So
lucky.
you're a mountain man. How come you do like the marathons that are just like the regular
Great
flat
question.
marathons?
So I'm retired, so that's good news. Just decided a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago. 70 marathons. I was basically surf bombing in
What
Malibu.
wait, what's your best time? Best time.
Uh, so my last 11 marathons have been sub 230, between 223 and 229. The fastest was 223, and it's
Wow.
one of those things where it's like, I mean, I had a progression in the 70 that I ran. I was able to keep getting better and better and better, and learn. And I was a student of the sport, and I just wanted to see what I could do. And when I turned 30, that's when I made the choice. Like, okay, I'm going to cut out the CrossFit. I'm going to cut out the jiu-jitsu. Just going to focus on this. And I lost a lot of my strength. I lost a lot of my,
Where
well-rounded.
where where were you doing CrossFit? Were you ever at Precision?
No, I was at. We had actually Malibu. Malibu. We had this guy Andre. He kind of introduced me to the whole thing. Andre Habenak, and he was an amazing trainer. But this was back in '09, so that was when the
Okay.
CrossFit Games were up on the
Yeah.
ranch up in NorCal.
Yeah, that's when I started.
Yeah, so we take our motorcycles up there and check it out, and but then this guy started Malibu CrossFit, which is still there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we were mostly doing it was
Mike,
Mike, yeah,
or
Mike
I'm
Anderson,
Mike Anderson.
yeah,
Yeah,
Mike
I
Anderson,
don't know
yeah,
why I almost said Mike
great,
Anthony.
great guy,
Mike
yeah,
Anderson, he's a good buddy, and I'm working on the McDonald's thing that I'm doing right now. Is I'm working with
nice,
him.
yeah, he's awesome, yeah. But we were like mostly up at Pepperdine, just bringing a set of weights out of the van up there, and then I was remodeling the Malibu Racket Club, and we built a full like pull up cage up there.
Hmm.
So we were there for a year and a half, and we had our own CrossFit set up at the Racket Club.
That's
So
awesome.
that was cool. But yeah, but I was 30, and I remember walking for the first time. It was my 30th marathon. I was 30 years old. I was fucking fit. And I remember walking at mile 16 because I was so strong. I was just gassed. And I said, I got to make a choice. Like, do I really want to find out what I could do in the marathon? And I was like, all right, let's just go for it. So all in, all marathon. And I ran about 12 marathons, I think, in those years. And yeah, I got to that sub 230
So at that
level.
pace, are you winning these races?
It depends on you could be a 230 guy and win every single marathon you want to
Right.
win and get invited and not have to pay if depending on the race you go to. So for me, I wanted to go to like Boston and run with the
Right.
Kenyans.
Right.
I
You want to
wanted to
run the
see like,
gameless, yeah.
okay, like how do I stand up against like the best in the world? The
And
Africans.
you're running in that pack, right? Like if you're running sub 230, you're running at the front pack, right?
I mean, so my last marathon was last year, Boston. I was an invited professional in the men's field, and I was with the pack for the first mile, and then they peel away because I was my first mile was like 5:01. Their first mile was like 4:45. So
Wow.
it's like, well, at first mile we were the same. So I guess the second mile they
Yeah.
pulled up to the 4:45, and I'm still back at the 5 minute pace, right? So,
But you
um,
you you also at that point, don't try to
yes,
you're not
100%.
like you're not
Yeah,
capable of that,
yeah,
and so don't do it or you're going to blow
yes,
out.
hundred
Right.
percent. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you get to know your paces and your gears so well, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do 100-mile weeks, for 3-4 months at a time at
Right.
different points in my running career. So, I it was awesome, and I'm so glad that I did that and that I made the choice to go after it. And then what happens, I think, in any sport is you've created these habits, and you just it becomes your norm, and that's your day to day. And I think you can spend the rest of your life in that state, and I think I was going to run another marathon in December, and my wife was like, you know what, maybe you're done, because I was having issues with motivation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very highly self motivated, so that was like
Mm-hmm.
a weird thing. And I really had that thought of like, yeah, you know what, like it's okay to be done, and it's actually great to be done, because then you can take the energy that you would have kind of dumped into that and go a new direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm feeling great about getting back into CrossFit and strength and jujitsu and martial arts and surfing and all the stuff that I just wasn't doing for those years. So
Yeah, but it's good that you're there, that I think it was a book I read called Quit,
mm,
and it was all about knowing when to quit something and when to move on. I saw Ricky Gervais in an interview one time, and it was awesome because he said, "You always hear these like motivational speech, never give up, never quit, never." And he's like, "Really,
yeah,
really?" He goes, "Because I wanted to be a pop star." And he goes, I was in like a Flock of Seagulls type band. He goes, eventually I quit. And he goes, if I never quit, I never would have gotten into comedy and created The Office, which then spurred the United States version of The Office and all the great movies and TV shows that he's made. So he's like, thank God I quit.
That's awesome.
But it's knowing when to quit.
Right.
Like knowing, don't give up,
Yeah.
but know when to quit. Know when it's time to do something new, or you've lost the passion.
100%.
There's nothing worse than doing something when the passion's not there. I know from like my projects, my comedy projects, there are things that I love and think are amazing, but at a certain point I realized that like we've run out of gas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
I'm going to create something new where I can have that passion or put it into something else.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have so many hobbies and so many different things, because I don't know, I just get bored being obsessed.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at your obsession of running and how you were able to focus everything on that one thing. That's something most people can't do.
Well, I'm amazed at it because I would call myself ADD all the time before that.
Yeah.
And I think it did give me a discipline by making that choice and then just sticking to it. I gained a new discipline that I didn't have in my younger years. I think maybe that's one thing I'll take with me, but I feel so good to be closing that book,
Well, I don't want to harp on it because it is like in the past at this point, but I'm amazed at someone that you call yourself ADD, because I'm not. And running to me, I've always been like, it's funny, I was a sprinter in college, but since college, I still sprint a little bit every once in a while to play. But I run. I go on runs. I'll run 3 miles here, 4 miles there, and it's kind of boring for me. I got to bring music. I have to run like somewhere that it's like I'm going to look at stuff, or I'm always like checking my watch and going, can I go faster, or where's my heart rate?
Yeah.
How did you do, 100-mile weeks being ADD?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think it's just a matter of like, you do a little bit and then you can do a little bit more and you do a little bit more and it just keeps going that way. I think, initially when I ran, my relationship with the sport was like 4 miles 3 times a week. And I'm talking from like, and I guess in high school I would do like more like 5 days a week, but it was most of my life, it was more like 3 days a week. And so when I started to kind of turn that dial up a little bit, it's just one of those things where it just kind of gets easier like anything else, So it's like, okay, now the 5 to 6 miles that's kind of feeling easy. And I can add another day in the week. Okay, now the 7s and 8s are feeling like, no big deal. And I think it's just like it's a fitness thing. And I think that at a certain point, it becomes about a culture thing, because then you find yourself, just like with CrossFit, you find yourself in that community of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, then you start that game of like, hey, what if we did this? Or, hey, let's go meet at that mountain and like just bomb up it. Oh, let's go do. And when you find yourself in the community, that's when things happen that would definitely never happen by yourself. And I think it's like, even if you're the crazy one, like if you're the crazy one that's always throwing the idea out there, if you have somebody that's like, oh, all right, man, that's nuts, but I'll meet you for it,
Right.
So I think that was what happened with me, where it's like in Santa Monica, and I was living in Malibu for all those years, and in Santa Monica I found a group of guys that were fast and crazy and down to do whatever, and so I just had like this 10-year period where I just was in the right place at the right time. We were all like fired up to go after sort of Olympic trials type of marathoning. And it was like, how crazy can we make our training? How far can we push this? And that's the adrenaline and the excitement that I crave. And without that part for me, it's like, whatever. It's just like running to run, to your point, like it would never happen. But with that component of the competitiveness with your buddies and like that adrenaline, the excitement of like, this is nuts. We're going to run 29 miles and we're going to do we'll take a break every mile, but we're going to do 5-mile repeats at 5:20 pace. And we're going to just repeat that the whole time and see if we can survive, and it's like, all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to shit my pants just thinking about that workout.
Yeah.
Let's give it a try. And so I think it's that perspective. And it's like the oh shit factor,
The CrossFitters that are listening right now are cringing so hard because as much as they will beat up their body and do workouts, anytime running's involved, most of them are just like, oh. I find it like when I got into CrossFit, I found all the running very easy. And I saw that most CrossFitters had an aversion to running.
Yeah.
And when they were given the option of getting on an Airdyne or a road bike or jump rope or something, it was like anything but the
But the
run.
run,
And
yeah.
I'm like, why don't you guys want to run? I'm
Yeah.
like, it's so easy. And now as I get older, I'm finding running harder and harder and harder. My times are getting so slow, and I'm like, I feel exactly the same, and I feel like I'm moving at the same pace. Why is my pace so slow?
Yeah, it's going the other
It's
way. Yeah.
awful,
Yeah.
awful.